The title of my little section here today is this: what does it all mean? When I started in ministry, in religious science ministry, I knew what it all meant because I had a book called The Science of Mind and Spirit. And Robbie was there on the very first night. Yeah, mine's going to be short. You can stay. Yeah, you don't have to go sit there. You can sit right here. But Robbie, you were there that night, the first night I stood up as a minister and started this church, which was 20-some years ago. But I knew what I was talking about because I had the book and I was teaching Ernest Holmes. And it was very simple. It was very simple. Now, I don't know what I'm talking about. Seriously. And I'm good with that because it's changing. It keeps changing. And you know what Ernest Holmes said, if you're still teaching what I wrote 50 years ago, now it's 100 years ago, then you missed the point of what I was saying. And so when I get to this point in my life, I would have thought I was at this really cool place where I had it all figured out. I had my life figured out. I had my love figured out. I had my family figured out. I had life itself figured out. I was an expert. I understood science of mind. And then comes quantum. And I was like, and now I know nothing. What can I know? Because I get it. I really get it. This is an alive teaching. This is a movement of energy. This is a constant momentum of more and more and more. So this week, I teach Advanced Consciousness. This is Advanced Consciousness 2. I'm looking forward to Advanced Consciousness 30, see where we get to there. But this is only Advanced Consciousness 2. But this week was really, really interesting for me. We're reading a book called The Quantum Enigma. And the idea of the quantum enigma, the enigma about the quantum is that you are responsible for the life you are living based on where you put your focus. That in this thing called the observer effect, where you focus your mind sends your life in that trajectory, that direction. It's pretty simple. It's simple, but it's an enigma. Because if that's true, then how is life unfolding perfectly? Is life waiting for you to send it off? Or is life happening all on its own, but you're taking what life is doing and focusing it somewhere where you decide to go? And can all of this happen at the same time? It is a freaking enigma, which is why it's called the quantum enigma. So this week, we were talking about the quantum enigma, and we were getting to the point of how is life right now? And how is Easter and Christmas and Hanukkah and Passover, all of the things that we celebrate, all of the events that we've been taught about, all the events we've lived through, how has all of that shaped who we are? And is it shaping who we are at a point where we can't change it? Is it just, this is what's happening, get with the program? So one of the first questions, one of the first quotes that I want to show you today is this: interference is central to the quantum theory and to the quantum enigma. Interference. Anybody feeling any interference right now in their life? Yeah, we live in interference. The whole idea of energy is that these vibrations are constantly moving and interfering with one another. Cells are bouncing off each other, photons and neutrons, everything that's going on underneath the surface of everything that's going on, yet we focus on this out here. And we're being told by science that when we focus on this out here, we are creating more of this out here. And so I'll do this move all day because frankly, that's what we're all doing. We're just doing this. There it is, up, there it is again. And then, I could do that for a long time. We're just constantly, we're like gerbils going around and around in our wheels, creating the same old, same old, same old, same old, and thinking that we're just reacting to it. Well, guess what? We're not actually reacting to it. We're actually creating it. Next quote. Quantum theory tells us that the reality of the physical world depends somehow on our observation of it. So I have a question for you today, another question for you today, which is this. What have you been observing in your world right now? What have you been observing in the life you're living right now? And I'm not just talking about politics, to be very clear. I'm talking about your life. But your life as it applies to what's going on in the world around us. You know, in the quantum understanding of life, I am the malnutritioned baby in Ghana. I am that baby. I don't just know about that baby. I am that baby. I am the mother trying to protect her daughter in the Gaza Strip. I don't just hear about it or see it on the news. I am that. We've lost that. We have lost that understanding of who we are as a people. When we look at Passover and we talk about the Pharaoh, you know, Moses being able to take the Jews out of Egypt to freedom, but for 40 years they walked the desert. From desert to oasis to desert to oasis. We're all doing the same thing. We are observing and then creating again. Albert Einstein said this: you can't solve a problem on the same level that it was created. You have to rise above it to the next level. The question becomes, what is the next level? And my question, I wrote this down, when are we going to stop wandering the desert? And no, 40 years is up. We're like 1,000 years, right? So when are we going to stop wandering the desert, finding oases, and yet walking away and going to another desert? Because we're more used to the desert. When are we going to start realizing that it's really the journey that it's all about, and that we're creating the journey as we go? We're creating the desert. We're creating the oasis when we use our minds really well. We're creating the good, the bad, the indifferent, all the realities we have. We're creating all of it. So you have to rise above it to the next level. So 15 years ago, on an Easter, I was given on Good Friday, actually. Good Friday has always been an interesting day for me because it was on a Good Friday when I was in 7th grade that I flunked geography, history, and science simultaneously. And that they thought it was a good idea to give the report cards out on Good Friday, so that by the time I got home, I would experience the same thing Jesus did on Good Friday as I handed my report card to my parents. If I did, I don't remember if I did. On Good Friday in 2010, I was told that I had stage 4 cancer. Now, that was Good Friday, so Easter Sunday was coming. But on Monday, I was going to be in surgery, where they were going to take all of everything they could out of the right side of my neck. And so I'm like, and Kevin wasn't with me when they told me I had stage 4 cancer, because we just didn't think it was anything. I was like, oh, it's nothing. And then they tell you. So I drove home, and I'm thinking, wow, interesting, stage 4 cancer. There's no stage 5. So I guess this is a problem. And since they told me you're in surgery Monday because it has to go now, they basically said, by August, you'll be gone if we don't handle this. That was March. So, and now I'm thinking, what's my Easter talk going to be like on this year's Easter? And so I titled my talk, Rise Above It. And I thought, this is going to be difficult. How do I do this? Because as soon as I say I have stage 4 cancer, I am going to hear, no one's going to hear anything else. It's just going to be, so I made up this thing, and I know most of you know this. I made up a talk called I Met a Man. So I told them about this man I met as though it weren't me. And I tell them this whole story, and they're just sitting there listening to it. It's like, yeah, well, interesting week you've had. And then I said at the end, and I don't want you to feel like I've deceived you, but that man is me. At which point the gasps and it was crazy. It was really crazy, the shock waves. And I was like, that's exactly why I didn't tell you. I wanted you to see the difference in how you understood it so clearly as a principle. You understood the principle so clearly that I, as the minister of this man, knew that he would rise above it and that his mind would heal his body. You all believed that until it was me. Now your fear got in the way of what you believed. The title at the beginning of that song says, many nights we prayed with no proof anyone could hear. Well, we're in a science now. There's no proof that anyone is listening because we don't believe in that God. But something's listening. Something hears. Something knows. It's you. It's me. It's who we are. So the following week after my operation, I had to go back to the doctor's office, and I haven't told this story much. I don't know that you've heard this. I went back into the doctor's office, and Dr. Alessi, I was sitting in the chair, and he was checking the scar, and he said, "Can you wait here for a minute, because I want someone to meet you." And this little black woman comes in. She's probably in her 90s, and her whole neck was gone. Her half of her neck. She had had the same thing I had. And she walked in, and she just looked at me, and she went, "Rise above it." I was a little taken back at first. I was like, are we about to do a Baptist revival here? And she was like, "Rise above it." And David went, I told her what your talk was on Sunday. And I just started to cry, as I am right now. And she was like, "Thank you. I am going to rise above all of this." And I just sat there, and I'm looking at her, and I got up, she gave me a hug, and there was nothing to her. She was just this. And she passed away a few weeks later. And David told me, he said, she passed away. And I, in that moment, because I was just starting my journey of chemo and radiation and what it was going to take to get through all of this, and he said, "You really helped her. This is how she rose above it. She was done. She didn't want to be in this body anymore. She didn't want," he said, "she rose above it." And I was like, So when I told Kevin I was going to talk about this, because I don't talk about this much anymore, because I don't need to focus on that. It happened, it's done, I did well, and I don't need to learn that way anymore. But what I have understood is that we're doing the same thing here in our world right now. There's a lot going on in the world that many of us are having a hard time with. And this is not about politics of which side are you on, because frankly, there should never be sides. That's the first thing we need to deal with. But we're having a problem. Many people. If I have 10 people a day call me for counseling on what's going on in the world, that's a small day. And I get that. But what I'm really getting now is the idea of we have to rise above it. We cannot, as Albert Einstein says, we cannot solve the problems we have from the consciousness of what we're believing. We cannot. The Jews would never have gotten through it all if they just stayed in the desert waiting and constantly looking at what's going on. You're right when you talk about the Passover service as a kid. It's like, why are we doing this? Why do we keep looking? We have to remember where we came from and then forget where we came from and start remembering who we are. That's why that's so important. We have to be willing to see everything that's out there. That's why I started today with, what do you believe? And what do you stand for? And what does it mean to stand for something? And to close, the only thing any of us need to stand for is love only. Does that mean you put your head in the ground and you don't speak up when you see something that needs to be spoken out against? Not at all. But you don't speak against it. You speak from truth. You speak from love. And you still love everyone and everything as you speak your truth. That's rising above it. So this talk I gave 15 years ago when I wasn't, you know what? I was just going to say when I wasn't sure if I was going to live, I was very sure. I was not losing my hair, and I wasn't going to die. Those two things I was clear about. My doctor said I should have been clearer about nausea. Didn't happen. So I am clear that the more I let my hamster self keep looking at what's going on from a place of fear, doubt, worry, judgment, hatred, anger, the more I do that, the more I'm going to be caught in choreography that I would never give an actor to do. That's the truth. But if I can rise above it, like I did with cancer, if I can really rise above it, know the truth, as Audrey said this morning, that life is unfolding perfectly. What's the rest of the words? No matter what. You are creating the world you live in. You are creating this world. The way you observe it creates it. So, it's time to start creating a new world, wouldn't you say? Start creating the world you want to live in instead of belittling the world you think you live in. Because the world you think you live in, you created to begin with. So create a better one. Namaste.